Okay, so this is Lab 1, Exercise 1, and this one they give us both a .exe and a .dll file, and they want us to conduct static analysis on these two files, essentially just looking at using tools to look at the files, and they're, looking at their portable executable format and gathering all the information we can about it. And so just going in, I'm not going to do the virus total question. For the first, number two, when were these files compiled? And so I have both of the DL right here in this instance of PEView, and then I have the .exe, the executable, in this instance of PEView. For both, you just go to image file header, and right here shows when it's compiled. And the same thing with the .dll, and so we have it here. You can see the times are very close. I think they're about a minute off, or a couple seconds off. So that's one thing to note. The next question, are there indications that these files are packed? So there's two things I kind of looked at here. One was, so we'll just look at the .exe. If we look at imports, number one, we see a lot of imports, where if something is packed, you may not see a lot of imports, but we are seeing all these imported functions. And then also when we look at the image section headers for the text, the read-only data as well as the data, we see that the virtual size is kind of close to the size of the raw data. The big indicator here is if the size of the raw data is 0 or next to 0, then it's a decent indication that it's packed. And so we see here that this is not the case in any of the instances. And the same thing goes for the .dll. The next question, do the imports hit what the malware does? So starting with the exe, we see that it's doing lots of file manipulation stuff, creating files. Find next file and find first file are used for searching files and obviously copying a file. Close handle, that would maybe be closing a file handle. And then in the DLL we have a sleep function import, create process, create mutex, open mutex, and close handle. The sleep obviously causing a process to sleep. It's creating a process, creating a mutex. In the book it mentions that mutexes are often used by malware to see if there's other instances of mutex on the system. Not sure if that's the case here, but we can note that. Next question, are there any other files or host-based indicators that you would look for? And so what it mentions is here in the .exe. Oh, by the way, I'm using PEView for both of these, but you can also use Dependency Walker to look at the libraries, the DLs that the exe, for instance, imports, and I'll show you the same thing. But back to the host-based indicators, looking down here in section data where we have all our global variables and possibly strings, we do see some strings. What it wants you to find is this path that starts here with the C, Windows System 32 kernel. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong one. One up. Go one up right here. C Windows System 32 kernel 132.dll. That's not a standard DLL. It should be just kernel 32.dll. So that possibly is a signature of a malicious DLL file. And then also, which the book doesn't mention, but there's this pretty ominous string here warning this will destroy your machine. So maybe also another signature. The next question, which was network-based indicators, we're kind of going to do the same thing here, but for the DLL file. Looking at section.data, we see a hard-coded, looks like static IP address, 127.26.152.13. Obviously with the DLL, which is doing sleep and creating processes, maybe this is some sort of backdoor or daemon process that uses to beacon out. In the 7, what would you guess is the purpose of these files? We kind of mentioned that. The book says that maybe this DLL is the actual malware or the daemon process that's the backdoor, and maybe the exe is what's responsible for installing the DLL and getting it set up with all this file manipulation. So, yep, there's Lab 1.1, or 1-1.